Okay, welcome to Hopeifiers. We are chatting to you tonight from the ancestral home of the Blackfoot Nation. My name's Alan Friesen. I am waiting for my co-host Scott Sweetman to join me. But in the meantime, let me tell you, did you go to Ribfest on the weekend? On Friday, Saturday, Sunday was Ribfest. Did you go? On Saturday afternoon, did you go and bought a 50-50 ticket? Because we're still looking for the winner of the 50-50 raffle. Hey, there's Scott Sweetman. Hey, we're live right now, buddy.
Yay! I was trying to get in and something was wrong with my link. And so it took me an extra 4 minutes to get in. Sorry, pal.
No worries, buddy. So we were just having a chat before you got here, and I was saying, if you went to Ribfest and you bought a 50-50 ticket on Saturday afternoon from, let's say, between 1 and 4, you could be $10,000 richer. So dig out your ticket. Call me if it's the number we're looking for. Well, I'll give you the number. It ends. Oh, dang it. Hang on. Just make sure I got this right. Man, I'd look like an idiot if I said the wrong number. Hey, Scott. Hang on. I'm just going to look right at this number. Make sure I got it right here. Yes, so it's 0417443. 0417443. So the only last three digits number, 443. If you've got that number, get in touch with me and I want to get you $10,000. Scott A. Sweetman, good to see your smiling face, my friend.
Oh, you too, pal. I wish that it was me, but I didn't get a ticket. So it can't be me.
Oh,
but somebody out there, hopefully. And if you know somebody, right? If you know somebody who bought a ticket, make sure you tell them to check their ticket.
Exactly. I know that I thought of one guy, Dean was through there at that time. So I sent Dean an email, say, hey, Dean, buddy, just look at that ticket before you throw it out. Would you go to Timmy's or something, buddy? So, yeah.
Yeah. And nowadays, who couldn't use $10,000, right?
Exactly. We even had a couple people said, if I win, I'm going to donate it back to Rotary. And I said, oh, that's very sweet of you. Wanting to invest in your community. So very nice.
Rotary is all about hope. We're Hopeifiers, right? We're here. And Rotary is very much about taking resources, their resources that are donated to them and volunteers, and multiplying that, applying a force multiplier, if you will, and returning that. I'm not in Rotary, so I can say this. You can't because you're the president, but I can say it. I remember as a kid, lots of things we did as, my mom is a single parent. Lots of things that we did were sponsored by Rotary and good folks and organizations like that. So always like to see people supporting it. And if they have the winning ticket and decide to donate it back to Rotary, that's great. If they decide to keep it, that's great. But somebody claim that ticket.
Exactly. And thanks for the plug for Rotary, Scott. That's very nice. And there's several clubs in Lethbridge. So if you're interested in Rotary, want to know more about it, I can certainly help you. I will bring you to a meeting as my guest if you're interested. So keep that in mind if you want to check that out.
Well, and
yes, Scott.
Rotary is for young people too.
Oh, yes.
The girls were involved in a leadership camp, remember?
Yes.
Set up with that at the Bible camp. And it was a great experience. They loved it. And I know the university has a Rotary group.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not just, there's no age group on Rotary, really. It's all over.
You are right. Yeah, you are right. We've got high school kids. There's actually one for like junior high kids as well, right? But there's high school kids, there's university, and then there's 4 different adult clubs, I guess you'd call them. So yes, so there's lots of ways to contribute and lots of youth exchanges and those kind of things as well, right? So where we'll have a student here go and live with a family in Switzerland, and a family from Switzerland will send somebody here, right? Their daughter or son here to kind of hang out with us. And then we have, of course, rules how we make sure they stay safe for their trip and, those kind of things. But anyways, what a what a learning experience, those kind of exchanges.
Oh, absolutely. I know the twins really loved it, and it meant a lot to them, and they learned a lot from it and made some good friends that I think they're still in touch with. So I would definitely recommend anyone who's looking for something for their kids to get involved in. I know you guys do it yearly, and there's always stuff going on. So
Yes,
talk to Al if you need to know more, right?
exactly. So 2 weeks ago, when we last chatted, we talked about polyvagal theory. And
We did.
today, Scott, you're leading the discussion. What are we going to chat about today?
Well, it's interesting because after we had that talk, I was asked, people said, well, what were you talking about this on? And I said, well, it's a really cool show that my buddy Al started. It's called Hopeifiers. And they're like, well, is that word made up? Like, I've never heard that word before. And I said, well, yeah, actually it is a made up word. And they're like, well, what does it mean? At least to the people who made it up. And I got thinking about that. And, we got talking about it with this person, and we're talking about hope, right? And one of the reasons I wanted to be part of this project with you and really enjoy both watching it when Danielle's here and now participating myself is that the show is about hope. And I think that most people have an idea of what hope is, but we're often don't articulate what hope means to us. And I think it'd be really good tonight for you and I to talk about what hope means and what role it plays and why it's important that we think that people carve out a little bit of time in their lives and in their philosophy and in their routine for growing and nurturing hope and sharing it with others like we're trying to do here, right? So
great idea, Scott. So how do you've already got it figured out. You've got hope from 87 countries and you've got the synopsis here, right?
I did actually. And it's really interesting because hope is one of those things that's like love. We all sort of innately have an understanding of what it is, but often couldn't give you a definition of what we mean by hope, right? And I know that sciences like psychology have their own definition of hope. Religions have a slightly different meaning of hope. I talk to my kids, I talk to other people and just said, hey, what does hope mean to you? And I got a really wide range of answers. So let me throw it out to you as our sort of first question to kick the ball off, Al. What does hope mean to you?
Well, I think it means like optimism about the future. Like optimism that something is going to improve from where it is, or something that is negative is going to stop. Yeah. That there's reason for an expectation of joy in the future, or the possibility at least of joy in pleasing circumstances to come back or start. I think that's kind of what it is.
I agree with you. And I think that everyone I talked to had some version of the future, and either, as you said, something occurring that hasn't been happening, or the desire for something to occur, or for something to stop that was perceived as being negative or hurtful, or those types of things. But you and I've talked about time a few different ways on this show, and I got thinking about it, and the benefits of hope really take place in the here and now. And when I started reading about psychology and positivity and, some of the religious connotations of hope, the benefit was here and now, not just the future. So I think we have to be careful when we talk about hope, that it's not like a lottery. It's not, gee, I hope. I think of Don Williams. You're a music man, and I love the song, Lord, I Hope This Day Is Good. When I was a kid, I loved that. And it always, Lord, I hope this day is good. I'm feeling tired and misunderstood. That's all I'm ever going to sing. But anyway.
Nicely done, Scott.
Yeah, that took a lot of energy. But I think that feeling is...
Okay, I think, can I jump in here? I think what you were telling me right now is you're saying hope is future focused. It's about the future, but the benefits you experience right now in thinking about the future in an optimistic way. Would that be a fair statement?
I think it is. And I sort of got there by asking people, do you think your hope manifests things? Right. And so it's really interesting, the answers I got back on that. So I'll ask you, and then I'll support that with a little bit of what other people told me. Do you think your hope manifests things?
Most definitely, absolutely, 100%. Yes.
Okay. And do those things happen in the future? Do they happen now? Do they happen with the things you're hoping about? Or do they happen to make,
I think the feeling, as you've already identified, the feeling happens right now, the feeling that you get of viewing the future in an optimistic way. But as things actually materialize, it's kind of, you throw things out there that you're thinking of that would be beneficial, and then like all of a sudden the things fall in place and it works, right? I don't understand the quantum mechanics whizzy thing that happens, but it happens that way. You say, this is something. Here's a good example, Scott. You ready for this?
Yep.
Today, I just called the Southern Alberta Ethnic Council, and I said, hey, I have this little singing show that I do, and what I'd like you to do is offer to newcomers to Canada if they would like to come as my guest on that show. And they can sing in their native tongue. I think that'd be lovely. So we get somebody that's going to sing us a song in Bhutan. Great. I don't even know if Bhutan's a language, but
Bhutanese, maybe.
Bhutanese. That's what. So anyways, I threw that out there. Now, nothing's going to happen right away, probably, but this is going to set a wheel in motion. And 3 months down the road, somebody say, hey, I want to do that. And that's okay. That I think that's kind of how you start the ball rolling, and it might happen immediately. It might happen in 20 years, but ultimately it comes to be.
I think that's ties in with a lot of philosophy of that sort of pebble in the ocean or pebble in the lake. The lake is still, and you throw that pebble out there, and first you see big waves, and then the waves become imperceivable, but they're still there. At a subatomic level, that wave continues even out past the borders of the lake and keeps going. So I think that's a really good point, is that hope is like that pebble, that it does create ripples in things that go out far past what we can see or appreciate. But what I found interesting is some people see hope kind of like a health spending account, to tie it in with your other day job, is that they don't want to hope too much. Because if they hope too much, then whatever power, manifest power hope has will diminish. It'll somehow get used up. Okay. And then there's other people that think hope is like a muscle. So the more you use it, the more hopeful you are, the stronger your hope muscle gets. Okay.
Huh. Uh-huh.
So when you're hoping, do you think you're spending a quantifiable or an amount of something that's finite? Or do you think you're building a muscle, a hope muscle, if you will, that will make your ability to hope even stronger and increased ability to manifest things?
That is an excellent question, Scott Sweetman. I have not thought about that. I kind of like, you think about it. If it's something you do, if it's a practice you do, certainly you're going to increase your capacity to do it, right? Like with anything, right? Whether it's lifting weight or singing songs or jumping buildings, whatever it is you're doing, the more of it you do, if you do it correctly or close to correctly, you're going to get better at it. You're going to get more proficient at it, right? So I see that, but also you know what? I think there is limits on it, because I think that when you're hoping, you're connecting to the source. You're connecting to the universal source of all knowledge, peace, love, joy, beauty, something like that. And the process that how this unfolds is out of your scope, beyond your pay grade. You're throwing it out there, and then things happen. Oh, look at that. I didn't see how that was going to work, but here it did, right? So, yes.
There's been a lot of research. Is quite old research now, but a lot of research in it, in self-help and modern psychology, and in a lot of the old tests that were done with willpower. I just read a great book on willpower, I think 6 months ago, and it was talking about the early tests where they would put a plate of cookies with children and say, don't eat a cookie. Whatever you do, don't eat a cookie. And then they would go out of the room and watch the kids and how long it took before the kids broke down and had a cookie. Right. And they, made all sorts of claims about the longer the child could hold back from taking a cookie, the better they would learn self-control and the better they would do. And, which I don't know, some of the most successful people I know and happiest people I know grabbed that cookie right off the beginning and never maybe took one and put it in their pocket for later. But I do understand the idea, and I'm sympathetic to that, where they've done recent tests on willpower. And so like by the end of the day, your willpower is less than at the start of the day. So willpower, and I'm sort of drawing a correlation that willpower might be like hope, right? It occurs in our head. There's no physical or outward mechanism of willpower, right? It occurs inside of us. Mm-hmm. And they've done a lot of research that the more your willpower is tested or used up, the less you have. So your ability to resist, that sweet treat that tastes good but isn't good for you is much less when you're hungry and tired than it is when you've just woken up and had a healthy breakfast, right? Sure. Most of us can understand that.
You bet.
That way.
Yeah.
And so I think that hope might be like that in the way that sometimes when we've been really hoping and hoping and hoping, we sort of get run down. And our hope battery, I guess is a little bit how I think of it, kind of gets diminished. And we forget to let hope exist in these situations. I think we talk a lot about how to help in your other show, how to help young people and help them through traumatic experiences. And, often people, when things get really, really bad, and they've been hoping for a better outcome and hoping that, illness or pain or abuse will stop and go away, that battery gets really depleted and they stop hoping.
Hey, Scott, I got a personal question to ask you now.
Yeah.
You've had health challenges.
Yep.
You've had a lot of health challenges.
Yep. Nurses were here today.
Yes. And so you've had hope. Oh, surgery canceled. Oh, yeah. No, we're not doing it. Hope. Oh, the doctor said I can't be fixed, or what? Like you've had your hopes dashed so many times along your health journey.
Yeah.
Like you're an expert in hope, and you're an expert in hope that the path has become filled with a bunch of detours, right?
Yeah. Hope. Honestly, I think hope is my superpower, man.
That's your superpower. Okay.
I really think it is.
Obviously it doesn't get depleted. Then you've got an inexhaustible supply of hope, right?
Yeah. And I think that for me, as long as I remember that hope really is sometimes the only positive thing I can do.
Right.
And
it's within your control. It's a decision. It's kind of a decision you make, right? I am going to be hopeful. I'm going to hope for the best and try to make that work out, right?
And, people talk about positive self-image and, all of those things. And sometimes those are hard, right? Like, I was in coma and then I gained all this weight and, they've operated on me and they've drugs and all sorts of stuff. And sometimes it's really hard to look in the mirror or, when you can hardly move to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be positive about how I feel or how I look or all of those things. But I find no matter how badly you're broken, and I mean, obviously other people have suffered far worse than I have, but speaking for me, however bad it gets, the one thing that I always have control over is hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can engage that hope engine when I have nothing left, when I have no willpower, when I have no belief that I have any control over anything. It's like faith. To me, hope and faith are like the two pillars of a good life and surviving the human experience. And faith for me is harder than hope. But
okay,
hope,
so why hope and faith? How are they different? Hope and faith. How faith is in faith in a process or faith in a supreme being?
Yeah, I'm a Christian. I chose to be an Anglican as an adult.
Okay.
As you know, I have a degree in comparative religion, so I'm really positive and open about all religions' faiths, and I don't think you need to belong to an organized religion to be religious or spiritual. In my case, my background is organized religion. I chose a spiky religion. Sorry, all to my Anglican colleagues out there, but I consider us spiky.
What do you mean spiky?
Oh, we're ecclesiastical. I like old style masses. I like the smells and the bells and ritual and those
traditional.
Traditional. Yeah. So I like my church traditional. Not that that's good or bad, just a personal thing for me, right?
Right.
So faith for me requires commitment. Hope doesn't require commitment. And I think most of us don't like committing to things if we're not sure we can meet those commitments. And so with faith for me, as being raised in a Christian faith and choosing to be a Christian, that's very much equated with having the strength and conviction to meet expectations, right? Mm-hmm. And those expectations may be imposed by myself. They may not be imposed by the church or God or the being or whatever. But for me, faith requires strength. Hope is my Hail Mary. And, at the darkest hour when I've prayed and when I just don't have the strength to hang on to faith, hope is always there. And hope leads me back to faith. And that's why I just love the name of the show, and I love the show, because I think that anyone in any situation can always imagine a little growth, a little seedling of hope. And it doesn't take strength, it doesn't take commitment, it doesn't take wealth, it doesn't take learning or intelligence. All it takes is just the desire for something better. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be for yourself, it can be for someone else. And for me, when someone you love is sick, or they're hurting, or they're dying, or they've gone through hell and you don't know if they're going to make it back, being hopeful for them is one of the purest things you can do. Mm-hmm. Because there's no guarantee with hope. It doesn't need a guarantee. Hope in itself is a reward. And
hope in itself is a reward for what it brings you today, right now. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that in any situation, and we started this by you asking me, what hope, where it's sort of been in my life, and hope reminds me that I don't know how things are going to turn out. Mm-hmm. It reminds me that so many things are beyond my control, that instead of trying to control everything, instead of trying to say, well, I'm going to get the best doctor and I'm going to spend everything I have and I'm going to, hope is that bridge that allows us to say, I accept exactly where I am now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I don't resign myself to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm very anti-resignation. You should never give up. Winston Churchill, behind you right now on my wall is a little thing that says, never, ever, 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 ever give up. And I think that hope is the power that actualizes that sentiment. And it allows us to then bring faith, which is probably a more powerful tool, to bear. Mm-hmm. But when you can't pick up the handle, that's the faith toolkit, or positive self-imaging, or all of those things, hope is that first step that we can all take in any situation. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
What do you think?
Well, you know what? As I talk to you about this, I think that you have an amazingly powerful hope muscle.
Amazingly disturbing.
No. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You have developed your ability, your capacity, your power of hope, which you use and cherish daily, right? Like, so this is, I think that life comes pretty easy for me, really. Yeah. I'm healthy. And in terms of, I've been doing all this work with about youth and trauma. And then that leads to poverty and racism. And so I've been working with this group called A Call to Men. And, when they bring up their chart and say, listen, there's this, this power imbalance, these guys that are white heterosexual, have money. I was like, shoot, like, they're talking about me, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, so anyways, I recognize that I am in a very, very fortunate position. And I want everybody to be in the same fortunate position. That would be lovely, right? Why, if we could all have that, that'd be amazing. And how can we move forward to make that happen? Boy, that was a long thing to tell you what I wanted to tell you about, when you were saying about the faith or hope in the faith, about where you're not sure how it's going to turn out, but you're optimistic that it's going to turn out the right way. And this, but our viewers might not. That Buddhist story about the man whose son finds this beautiful horse. And he claims this, this, right? The son finds this beautiful horse and he brings it home, and all the neighbors gather around and say, "Oh, what a beautiful animal." And they say to the father, "Oh, you're so fortunate. You're so, you must be so happy about that." And he just says, "We'll see." And then the son goes and he's working with the horse and it's all lovely, but then he falls off and breaks his leg, right? And then neighbors come over and says, "Oh, that's terrible. You should have never got that horse. Now your son has broken his leg and he's an invalid." And then they say, "That's terrible." And the father just says, "We'll see." And then, shortly after, the king is recruiting for soldiers. And if you're able-bodied, you're going to war, right? And you might not come back. That's how wars work. And so then it was, the neighbors could say, "Hey, wait, this is a great thing now." And, of course, this gent's answer is going to be, "We'll see." Like everything that comes along, this is happening for a reason. Then this is going to, something else is going to happen. I don't know exactly, but it's moving along the way it should unfold, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that there's two things to take away from that. And the first one is that hope is something we can share with anyone. And we don't have to be equal. We don't have to be the same color, the same economic status. We don't have to speak the same language. Hope can be communicated with a touch, with a look, with a song. There's so many ways to communicate hope. And it's universal. There's no culture that I've ever studied or ever seen or been a part of that doesn't have hope. And so that's something that all human beings, and I think animals to a great degree, also have hope. Certainly my dogs, when they're looking at a dog treat, are very hopeful that I'm going to share it with them. So they exhibit something close to hope if they don't feel it. But hope is something that we can share, and I think it transcends all of those barriers that we have. And faith is sometimes gets caught up in the semantics of religion and personal belief, and sometimes it's harder to share faith. But hope can always be shared. And, as a parent, that's the one thing that we have to learn to rely on. I think that children are excellent teachers of hope, because ultimately, when it comes right down to it, that's all we can leave with our children is hope. Because they're going to be who they are. And yes, we influence them. We can debate nature and nurture on another show. But really, if you can pass on hope to your children, you've armed them with something that will always be there in the darkest night, on the worst day of the most lonely, windswept, eroded place on the planet. They'll never be alone if they have hope. Mm-hmm. Because hope requires nothing of us but to just for a second believe, hope, imagine something a tiny bit better than where we are now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I love that comment about the tiny bit better too, right? Because if you're thinking about it, and if there's one little change you could make, whatever today was like, one little change that you can make that might make tomorrow another day, why wouldn't you try it, right? Whatever that is, get 15 minutes more sleep, take 4 minutes to meditate in the morning, take 3 minutes to get a more nutritious breakfast together before you get out the door. Whatever it is that's going to help you enjoy that day the best, have good energy, and be there for yourself and the people that you are trying to serve and help. And I think there's always a little bit that we can change, improve, learn as we go, right? I'm still trying to learn stuff every day. And sometimes I'm a slow learner, Scott. I got
Well, that's not true. I know you, and you were talking earlier. You've paid your dues, Al. Come on. I mean, yeah, you've come through COVID better than anyone I know. You're healthier, you're happier. I give you that, my man. But I know you paid your dues, so I'm not going to give you a free pass. You haven't had that beautiful life that only exists in television. It doesn't exist in the real world. But I do think that, and some of the negatives about hope are people say, well, you're just a dreamer.
Yes. Yeah.
What does it help to sit around and hope for things? That changes nothing. And I agree. Like, man, if you want to get healthier, get up, do something, take that step, breathe a little better, like absolutely action is necessary. I mean, hope is not the solution. It's the beginning to me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the cure for everything that you don't know where to start, and everything that you don't think you can do, and everything that you don't think you can handle, and everything that you think is too much. Hope is your armor against that. It's the sword that we use to cleave the darkness. Now, we're still going to have to take that first step, and we're still going to have to face
the sword we use to cleave the darkness. Is that what you just said? Oh, Scott. Woo, look at you go.
Yeah.
Nice one. I like it. Yeah, carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, but I really do think that it's not being a dreamer. I mean, people everywhere, I think, realize that hope has to be actuated to be its fullest and greatest. You have to do things, right? You have to take action, right? Just sitting around hoping, and I say that negatively, even though I believe that sitting around hoping is a very positive thing. But if you never take action, if you never, it's like the dad, right? He still fed the horse, and hopefully he still, fed the son, and, he couldn't just say, we'll see, and do nothing. I mean, there still was things to do. So I think that hope can be the thing you need when there's nothing left. And for
Scott,
me, yep.
All right. When you're talking, some of the words you said, I said, man, that sounds like a song lyric there. And I looked up and I found the song I was thinking of. Have you heard of this Marcus Mumford guy?
I don't know. Sing me a song, Al.
All right. So here's what it sounds like. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Exactly what Scott A. Sweetman was just saying. Marcus said the same thing.
But much better than I. That was a great song, Al. Yeah, keep hope in your heart. And that's what this show's about, right?
Yes.
Just to encourage people to keep hope in their heart.
Yes, exactly. And Scott A. Sweetman is a model of building up his hope guns, his hope muscles. He's done it so much. He's an incredible hope builder, hopeifier. Thank you for that, Scott. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Al. Well, you spread hope wherever you go, and that's a real gift. And I think we all are given gifts, and I think that yours is certainly. I know that I've watched you touch so many lives, and you're very active. You're a man of action, and you do a lot of stuff for other people, but you also leave hope in your wake, and that's an incredible thing. And I think that when people talk about legacies. And, as we get older in life, we think about, what's our legacy going to be? What are we leaving behind? And people often don't think about the things like hope that they've left behind. And when people remember you, the hope that you've imparted on them. And, I could talk all night about times where you've given me hope by things you've done and things you've said and things you've shared with me. And, I encourage people out there to share hope with people. And
can we all make a difference, Scott?
Absolutely.
Every one of us, right? It doesn't matter if you're talking to the barista at Starbucks and you say, "Hey, Janet, thank you very much. This looks awesome," or "Love your hair," or "Great glasses," whatever it is. Make it a little bit of a special little not a transaction. Make it a special event for you both. An event where that you have a life affirming experience, which increases hope, which increases joy.
Yeah. And I think it is. I think those are perfect examples of what hope is, because when you're polite to someone, when you're nice to someone, it gives them hope that the world can be a friendlier, nicer, gentler place.
Yeah. Yes.
And when we share love, when we share compassion, really, yes, for that person or that group or whatever, it's a short-term gain, or it may change their world forever. But what we're also doing is we're showing the people around us, and we're showing the people that are really having a hard time that, there is hope. And I always enjoy
to take that extra 20 seconds to make it a meaningful experience for both of you. How does it make you feel?
Exactly. You
feel great, right? You just got a big jump up on dopamine, and oxytocin is just like, whoo, doing that for somebody else is good for you. Just like Billy Swan said, same thing.
We need a t-shirt, just like Billy Swan said.
Just like Billy Swan says. Scott, any other words of wisdom do we have, or should we kind of move things along?
Well, yeah, I think we can move things along. I do hope that people who chance upon our show, and you and Danielle, when you get back, or any of your other shows, take away a little bit of hope, and just remember that anything is possible, and everything starts with that little seed of hope that things could be a little bit better, things could be a little bit gentler, things could be a little bit happier. And, yes, you're going to have to get up off the couch and make it a reality, but it starts with that seed of hope. And I think that we should all be like the Johnny Appleseed character, and we should just put on our bag of hope, and we should go out in the country and just cast our hope around us and spread those seeds of hope far and wide, man. Don't be stingy with your hope.
Beautiful.
The more of it you give, the more of it you get. So
exactly, you give it, you feel good for doing it, for helping, for being of value to that person. So it's good for them, good for you, good for all of us. Yeah, let's have more of that happening, my friend.
I asked Katrina. One of the questions I was asking people is, what do you do when it's really black in your life, and you're just worn out, and it doesn't look like hope's going to help, and how do you keep hope alive? And she said to me, she said, I think of times where I felt just like that, and hope did help. And where I felt that everything was going for crap. That's my word, not hers. But things were dark, and I didn't see my way out of it. And then I can remember a time that it did help. That one time where just that little bit of hope was the point where everything started to turn around and get better and lighter and happier. And that's really good advice, I think, that Katrina gave me. A really good answer. And I hope that everyone out there can find an example of hope in their lives or in someone else's life. And, you don't have to look too far. Pick up a book, pick up, your television remote, and you have to be selective, because I think that there's an agenda to crush hope, because when we have no hope, we're easy to control, we're easy to manipulate. And that serves the purpose of people who want to use other people for their own ends.
Yes.
And, when we talk about bad relationships, we talk about, bad family situations. A lot of that, the first thing you do is destroy hope. You look at brainwashing, you look at things that have happened during world wars, or times of, horrific outcomes for life, or people in a giant scale. And one of the first things they do is crush hope, because once you crush all hope, really, people are awash. They have nothing to hang on to, and they'll follow, and they'll obey, and they'll do all of those things. So if people can take away just that little bit, find hope, if you can't kindle it in yourself, look for it in someone else, and then just, let their hope empower you to get a little bit of your own hope.
You bet. And there's so many good resources, and there's friends. Like, call somebody. Hey, I need a little booster. I need a little hope booster. Call Scott. He's really good at the hope thing.
I'll give you one little secret.
What's that?
Yeah. So sometimes, like the medical stuff, somebody will say, get this situation, or let's say somebody's diagnosed with something. Go on the internet, type in and it'll come up and say, mortality rate 75%. And I get excited and I'm like, sweet. And people are like, what are you talking about, man? 75% mortality. And I'm like, yeah, but 25% of those suckers lived. And I'm going to be in that 25%.
Love it.
And I think that so much is about how you look at things. And, there's always that statistical anomaly. There's nothing that's ever 100%.
True.
So there's always that tiny, even, in raw science, there's that statistical anomaly that should give us all hope.
Always reason for hope. And with hope in your heart, you never walk alone.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Okay, so now one thing too. Next Thursday, you and I are doing this again. We'll figure out what we're going to talk about. Yeah. But Thursday at 11 o'clock at Just FM or Just TV, we are starting a new series. It's called Meet Your Mayor. So What we're going to do is we're going to have a nice little chat, positive chat about their vision for the future for the 5 mayor candidates. So our first one next Thursday at 11 o'clock will be Stephen Mogden. And so Stephen and I will have a nice chat about his vision for Lethbridge as mayor. And then each of the mayoral candidates, we're going to have a nice little chat with them. So so it'll be fun.
We're spoiled for opportunities in our candidates this time around.
Yes.
There's a lot of great people that are running in the election, not just for mayor, but, for council positions.
Yes.
I think it's really, really important that people get out there and listen to as many messages as they can this year. And I'm encouraging people, as you are obviously, to do exactly the same thing, is, get out there and get to know these people and get to know what they're about. Because it's not going to be such an easy decision in a lot of cases, because there's more than one or two good people running. Yes. There's a lot of good people, and not saying that in the past we haven't had good people, but we really are spoiled for opportunities, I think, to improve our community in this election. So exactly.
And when you're thinking about a candidate, who's going to make Lethbridge a better place? Who's got the plan to make Lethbridge a better place? Who's going to be able to work together with others to make that happen? That's who we need.
Who holds hope in their heart, man?
Hope. Who? We need a hope-o-meter, and you hold it up to the candidate. Oh, he's 92% hope. Oh, she's at 98. Whoa, we need a hope-o-meter. Yes. Okay. Scott, thank you. See you next week, buddy.
You bet. Take care. Have hope, my friends.